Well, if you believe it, it's time to cast the Shambler taking on HitEmUp. This should be an interesting set of matches here. We've got two games that were greenlit for cast, one on Paradise, one on Derelict 2. Let's jump into our jungle map for the opener. This 4-spawn map will be vertical spawns, and we have, get in this lobby, Bozo, aka the Shambler, as Protoss in the top right, while HitEmUp is Protoss in the bottom right. Of course, he is yellow. Yeah, we're getting the flat colors today. This is, of course, purple. And then this is, of course, just regular yellow. So very, very basic stuff here. Normally in Cosmonarchy, you see we have like 100 player colors. So there's many different options. Of course, some of them are going to be available on certain tile sets, and some of them are going to be blacklisted on other tile sets. Like you can't get really bright blue colors or white colors on the ice tile set for obvious reasons. You can't get like oranges and browns on desert, etc., etc. So, but on the jungle tile set, you usually are pretty in the clear. You don't have to worry too much about things. This map is by Biddy B. It's basically a port or reimagination of Dante's Peak, and it is called Paradise, as mentioned in the intro. Looks like Shambler will be scouting in the top left. Yeah, don't mind the name. We have the actual username people use in the game in the top, and of course on the units and stuff. And so HitEmUp is always representing his clan. Oops. Shambler may represent his clan, the United States Cosmonarchs USCM, sometimes, and other times he might just decide. And instead, I'm just going to be getting this lobby bozo. So we'll see who's the bozo for real by the end of this match. We've got a gateway coming for both players at this point. HitEmUp a little bit more conservative with his building placement, but otherwise nothing to report just yet. Although it is noteworthy that HitEmUp will be scouting his opponent first, which is always fun on a 4-spawn map. I'm sure Shambler will not type about that, as the second gate does go down for both players. So keeping in lockstep with each other for now. Nothing really to write home about, although HitEmUp has started harvesting Vespene. So that's always nice. And the other thing that I'm always curious about when I see these mirror matchups is essentially who deviates first and how fast, how hard is that deviation. And the fact that we already have so much Vespene being harvested here from HitEmUp indicates to me that I think he's going to be going for Hierophants semi-early, whereas the Shambler still has not harvested any Vespene. And therefore, I believe he'll be going for Mass Legionnaire for the time being. So in Cosmonarchy, you've got about 50 units per race. This means that you do have units like the Ecclesiast, which are totally new. And the Ecclesiast is essentially this Protoss infantry-style unit, sort of like how the Zealot worked, right? Where instead of being a melee unit, it's like a short-range unit. It's got 4-weapon range, so not the craziest amount of range, but still something. And one of the things that the Ecclesiast offers is that when it hits a victim, it will actually release a pulse of shields around that victim, assuming any unshielded allies are nearby. Like if the scribe had been damaged by that scribe over there, then you would have actually seen the behavior in effect. And that is going to help keep melee units or units attacked by enemy melee units alive for a little bit longer, because it essentially heals shields as soon as the hit comes in, basically. So it's actually just straight up mass Ecclesiast. This is something that we've seen a little bit from Arbuz, although he usually works in some Zealots and stuff, and also a Hierophant early on. Yeah, Arbuz Budesh, another Protoss player who's been relatively new, picking it up. Yeah, he's gone a very heavy number of Ecclesiasts, and it looks like HitEmUp has a nice little wall here to prevent the Legionnaires from getting too far in. However, because they're Legionnaires specifically, you got to watch out for that, because of course they can and will just sort of jump on and teleport to units. So it kind of makes sense that HitEmUp falls back there, but he will be paying for it in his worker count, albeit only 2. So this actually isn't that bad, because the Shambler behind this wasn't making a worker this whole time. He only now went back and made some workers. So actually HitEmUp will be only behind a worker by like, I don't know, 3 seconds or something. It's not that much. Now back at Shambler's base, he's going to add a 3rd gate and continue the Legionnaire spam. Although at this point, I think it's pretty safe to say that the range beats melee in this archetype, because the range in this case, even though it's a lot slower and, about as squishy when you're looking at the statistics, a little bit more health, obviously. A little bit less shields. But the main thing is that the Ecclesiasts will heal each other when they are descended upon by the Legionnaires. So unless the Shambler can dive in super deep and get a lot more, ranged, worker kills or whatever, it does feel like he's basically, just sort of trading a couple of shots here. The cliff advantage actually could have helped HitEmUp kill a 3rd Legionnaire there, but still trading 2 for 1 in this situation isn't that bad. Obviously, the Ecclesiasts do cost Vespene, so that's something you want to factor in. And we have Drakodins out now, so an interesting little tidbit as the embassy warps in. We'll talk a little bit about that in a moment. The Legionnaire, when it actually teleports, there's a chance that it, the target, say a Drakodin is shooting a projectile. If the teleportation happens as the projectile has left the building already, like it's already left the unit, then the projectile will just miss. And so the Drekadons are not that good versus Legionnaires because of that, because, you know, in some ways it might effectively not be particularly successful in trying to, like, test for that. But it is technically a pattern you can try to rectify and figure out. And here Shambler's adding a 4th gate, so he is literally just going to make 1 unit the whole game. He's starting to add Ecclesiasts in, so not quite true, but, you know, for all intents and purposes, true. His own Ecclesiast will definitely help bolster the front line. But you can see what it affords him, building non-stop Legionnaires out of the gateways here. Even though it's a very one-note strategy, it does afford him a heavy amount of military units in the early stages of the game. Now, the problem is that the embassy is out. And so the embassy is what produces the Witness, aka Observer. And the Witness, of course, is just like the Observer. Actually, it's a little bit slower by, or a little bit faster by default, but you don't get upgrades in Cosmonarchy, so you can't, like, increase its speed since then, like with an upgrade or whatever. And obviously you can increase its speed through a variety of other ways, but I wouldn't necessarily recommend it. They'd all be short-lived buffs. But the other big ticket item that the embassy provides here is the embassy provides an additional worker production queue. So HitEmUp is actually very ahead in workers. He just macroed better in general, like he missed less worker queues, essentially, less macro cycles. But the Shambler also may have cut some of those workers anyway. And I say this because even though, yeah, okay, he has another worker queue, so wouldn't it be expected that he has, you know, a heavy amount of, oh, I love this, you know, he has a worker advantage or whatever? Not really, not in this situation. So we'll have to see how this one goes. I love this setup here that he's going in. He's going to go ahead and put up a pylon wall, and it's not airtight, as you can see. The units can still move through them. But he canceled his Nexus, or if he even had it up, and he's going to go drop a Grand Library with the excess minerals, which is a mineral-only structure. And that is absolutely going to help out and pay out dividends here, because he knows, thanks to his Witness Scout, that his opponent has left the building and is not building an expansion. Now he is, right? But, you know, this attack force, even though it's pretty interesting, you know, pretty powerful or whatever, it's not really that... it's not going to be able to bust that ramp for sure. When you're on high ground in Cosmonarchy, you get +2 weapon range targeting units on the low ground. And that is true for even if you're on like the highest high ground and you attack the lowest low ground, then you actually get stacked bonuses. So one of the pylons gets popped for easier access. The Nexus will now go down. But the tech advantage is surely in the advantage of, or in the favor of HitEmUp, as he does have the Grand Library up. He has the Embassy up. He has the worker count up by 6. And obviously in a mirror matchup, that is pretty significant. Now his Nexus is going to be a little bit slower. But for one, Shambler doesn't actually know that his opponent has an embassy, and he might expect it or whatever, right? I'm not sure if he's seen the Witness by now. He's not endeavoring to make his own Witness or, you know, embassy for the Witness, so I would predict that he doesn't have that knowledge. We still have, yeah, we have defenses being put up here. So it does feel to me like Shambler is, he's going to end up taking a sweet time with the way that that's going. And so now he definitely is aware of the Witness because he saw it move around his base. Like he had his camera over here. So at some point he's going to be thinking about that. He should know that he's behind in workers, just sort of like intuitively. And the Nexus is coming up here for HitEmUp again, a little bit later than the Shamblers, but he's got 10 workers more than the Shambler. So even though the little bit of economic efficiency boost is going to be here for the next like 15 seconds or whatever in favor of the Shambler, it's very fleeting, and the worker count is high enough, and this is, you know, again, an additional production structure for workers specifically, that I think it's easy to call this one an advantage for the for the Yellow Protoss. That being said, the Atriuses are going to be the weapon of choice here, interestingly enough, for HitEmUp. I thought he would be going for Cantavis or something, but it actually does make sense to go Mass Atrius. So Atrius is a unit for the Protoss that deals splash damage and has low damage but high rate of fire. So it basically shoots like a bunch of shots fairly quickly, for a Protoss unit anyway. About the same attack speed as the Hierophant, actually. And so it ends up being pretty effective there, since it will splash, you know, these small infantry units. Now, Ecclesiasts help to mitigate the impact of that particular idea. Embassy coming down here in the natural for the Shambler, so eventually he will be able to swat the fly that's been buzzing around his base and spying on him the whole time. But I actually think as more gateways get added to achieve production parity, and as the army starts to move out here for HitEmUp, he'll be potentially able, I mean, he's keeping track of where his opponent's army is, right, using this Witness. So that has actually been a very impactful unit here. He's going to start making the map look a lot less open and a lot more dark for the Shambler. And the Witness is also withdrawn, so I think maybe he clocked the embassy coming and decided, okay, I'm going to leave the area here and we're not going to bother making, leaving my witness in the area to see anything else. So that'll be interesting to see what we get from there, because I'm not even sure that Shambler is going to make a witness anytime soon. But it looks like now heading back over to spy on the army positioning makes a lot of sense. Let's see a second Grand Library being added here for HitEmUp in the natural. He doesn't necessarily want to take his third base yet, but, well, I say that. His scribe is trying to escape, so it looks like it has finally slipped the net. Witness, once again, just moving through. We've got workers being produced by the embassy. So we will have worker production sort of even out here, except for, again, the Shambler is going to be delayed in taking the third base here, just like he was delayed in building the embassy by a massive amount. So his slightly earlier take on the natural is not that efficient. I do like that Shambler is moving a couple of units here and there and just peeling off some Legionnaires sort of one by one to keep track of where the enemy's position is. Again, this is something you'd love to have the witness for, but he doesn't have that yet, even though he made the structure. So he's kind of reduced to using this for now. More Drakidans coming out, more Atriuses waddling out as well. We've got plenty of those in the production tab that you can see next to our players' names. And in case anybody is wondering, I try to front load this where possible, where I remember. The unit count here is actually workers over military. So workers on the left, military on the right. So you can see here that the Shambler has more military units, but many of them are Legionnaires, so the quality of his army is not as high as HitEmUp's. He also has, obviously, less workers by about 9. So let's see if this Nexus will be able to stay up and continue warping, or if this is going to be a fight that decides the game. I mean, HitEmUp is going to go ahead and charge forward. We do have the attack speed increase. That's that red overlay that shows up every so often for the Protoss army. That's courtesy of the Hierophants, which are not actually in the fight right now. The Atriuses are kind of getting stuck on. There's not really any front line here for HitEmUp, and it does feel like maybe he's getting stepped on by most of the Ecclesiast healing. He hasn't really been able to do any sustained damage, but he does have the cliff advantage now, and funneling his opponent into a tight choke is going to really favor the Atrius splash damage, which again is like really the main thing that has been happening here. And so that goes through all of the melee that the Shambler had, at which point you start to favor the higher tech army, especially since HitEmUp does have some zealots. But he's not going to be successful in stymieing the expansion attempt, and it looks like his Nexus actually was a little bit later after all. I thought at the end of the day he would have his Nexus finished and ready to go like a little bit sooner. But at this point we don't actually have that many worker production. We don't have any worker rallies or anything. Now the Shambler has built an Ardent Authority, which is sort of like, mid-game, advanced, mid-table robotics production. You could think of it as like the equivalent to, it makes the Acantor, which is obviously equivalent to the Reaver, but it also makes like the Architect and a couple of other units that are fairly powerful for the period of the game, and then it makes some fodder units that you might make, a couple of, although not that many people end up doing that in practice, so it might be something to look at later on from a design standpoint. But despite that, HitEmUp is looking very nicely set up here. He's still ahead by 5 workers, so that gap has shrunken a little bit. They're now dead even in worker production queues, so any missed macro cycles will, obviously help to allow the Shambler to stay intact at this point. But I think he has gone from a very unwinning position to a position that works out pretty well. If HitEmUp tried to attack earlier when the Legionnaires were still strong, he obviously would have been routed. He waited for his tech army to start to manifest here, and now he might have waited a little bit too long. The Acantor is going to be able to help deal with Zealots. Although after that, I'm not really sure what the Acantor provides. Atriuses are now here. Remember that there's not really much melee over here in favor of the Shambler. All of his melee is off to the left-hand side, and everything else is flanking over to this side, where HitEmUp is just going to go ahead and ignore most of the standing army. His Atrius is getting caught, some of his other units are getting caught, but the Acantor is dead. The Matrix is now going to fall shortly. No, instead he turns to fight the army, now splitting off there, but the Engram's about to finish. Needs to maybe think about depowering these pylons, but his Atriuses are just cracking shot after shot, breaking through the Ecclesiasts eventually, and the armor on these guys is going to make it so that it's a lot harder for those Ecclesiasts to bring them down than maybe you might expect. Not that many workers have gone down here. HitEmUp only narrowly ahead by 4 workers right now, and he is going to have to withdraw with most of his army. I think making a beeline for the third base is something he should have done when he spotted the army out of position, or he should have just committed to attacking the army, because honestly, to me, it looked like he was winning that fight. It looked like he was able to get that army going. But as like clockwork for both of these players, they are taking their 4th bases after an attack or during an attack, and now the Shambler feels like he's got the potential to make a good counterattack. But remember that HitEmUp did have a lot of forces in position to do some things, and then he felled them back. He brought them back and recalled them, so to speak. Not through the Starcraft 2 way, the manual Brood War way, the good way. Now he's going to break down that Warden that was warping in, so no more static defense, but that pylon is definitely going to cause some A-move problems. It looks like now we might be in a better position here for the Shambler, who's trying to not get flanked and you know, completely isolated in this pocket here. It looks like maybe that's exactly what's happening, but he can charge forward. When the Ecclesiasts die, they release a movement speed pulse. So everything else can disengage a little bit here when that happens. The Hierophants are falling, so that's going to be it for attack speed increases. It sans this one in the back. And the Cliff Advantage affords a couple more dead units for the Shambler, specifically, of course, the Ecclesiasts. We have a Synthetic Synod coming at the third base. You know, something Nebelheim commented on somewhat recently is that maybe people should stop putting their tech in the in awkward positions, like in the open ground. And I kind of feel like that's the case here, but maybe the logic from the Shambler is that if he loses his third, the game's over anyway. I mean, it does feel a little fallacious, but it also does have a trade-off, right? The trade-off is it gets to the front line a lot faster. So he's adding 2 rogue galleries. I assume those are going to end up being for vagrants or maybe even Barghests for armor penetration, although right now we haven't really seen a need for that. He's got 3 Acantors out thanks to his work with the Ardent Authority earlier, and we did see 2 of those go down here for HitEmUp, who is otherwise just producing nonstop Atriuses and a lot of workers. Now, actually, Shambler is ahead in worker count, and it looks like, based on this trajectory, HitEmUp is going to go for a faster 5th base than his opponent. And remember, as Protoss, you can pretty easily just decide, okay, I'm going to go ahead and build like a Nexus here, and a Nexus here, and a Nexus here. We'll see what he ends up wanting to do. It looks like he was thinking about taking maybe the 3rd from the bottom left perspective, but instead he's going to go for the bottom left natural. That works out fine, in my opinion. No capped geysers yet, as far as I can see, which is a little curious. I guess gas isn't totally, you know, derelict in terms of the amount that we have here, but still feels like we could have more, especially for the Shambler, who's got, you know, 1,000 minerals in the float. Rogue Galleries coming online at the 4th base for the Shambler as well. They haven't actually made anything yet, so you know, maybe we'll see what he wants to do with those. But they also kind of help work as walls, right? Especially in this position here at the 4th base. So 3 o'clock is going to be mostly impenetrable thanks to the Acantors holding the position. And it looks like with the Demiurge equipped here for his army, the Shambler is going to see if he can seize control of the opposing forces, particularly melee ones, and otherwise see what he can accomplish elsewhere. This is after the rework to Tyranny, where the tyrannized units provide take extra damage but move faster. So it looks like maybe Shambler wants to try to get a little bit closer so he can actually start to mind control some of these bad boys. The Zealots are starting to fall a little bit thanks to the Atrius count, which is now only going to grow as the rest of the army charges forward. Now here comes the Demiurge, trying again to siege and seize some of these units on the front lines, but it has to fall back, and it doesn't look like that's going to result in any stolen units after all. Some of these Zealots are very much low, and the Ecclesiasts are trying to fall back thanks to the movement speed buff, but at the end of the day, it's not actually working out for him. However, every single time we see one of these Ecclesiasts die, it means that the Demiurge gets away scot-free for sure because it gets that movement speed boost. So there is no catch potential here. I don't see any Hierophants or anything, and we that's pretty much the main option for slow. Now, 6 Acantors out for Mr. Shambler. I do think that he can A-move with that pretty nicely, but he's not against Zerg. He's against Protoss, and Protoss, in this case, have the Architect out. So it does feel to me like HitEmUp has the tools to potentially catch that. However, it will be a messy fight. You're going to be playing dodgeball times 6. The way that the Acantor works now, instead of firing a projectile, oh my god, there's actually 7 of them, funnily enough. Instead of firing a unit, essentially, that has pathfinding and has to respect collision, it fires a normal projectile that goes through units and stuff and can go over terrain and whatnot, but it's very slow, and it will pop on any single unit. Which means that when you, like, say you just move that Zealot that just walked across this bridge, you can actually intercept the Acantor shots. So this Zealot here is indeed going to end up taking 1.5x damage instead of 1x damage, and he will also gain increased movement speed in the presence of an enemy. We'll see, maybe we can see that in action at some point, but now the Ecclesiasts are taking the initial fight, and again, the Acantor count is so high right now that I don't think these Zealots are going to stay alive for very long. That being said, the Architects kind of have to choose, do we focus the Demiurges, one of which on the left has already fallen, very, very expensive unit, a lot of gas, or do we try to focus down the Acantors? And the whole time, that Demiurge has taken control of pretty much all of HitEmUp's Zealots, and he's unfortunately waypointing his Architects in through the bridge on the other side. Those could have been used to snipe down the Acantors, which have already been reduced to a count of 4. Now, this Demiurge is not very healthy. And it's also the only tech unit that's really left in this fight that might be able to threaten some bases, because I think these Acantors are just going to get utterly annihilated. Now, more Zealots are indeed going to go ahead and hit the deck, but again, I mean, you have Acantors, you have Architects for HitEmUp, so it doesn't feel like Shambler can really do too much more of this. He is waypointing more units on this side, but besides the Demiurge, these are all very basic tier 1 units, so you don't really have to worry about, I mean, technically the Vagrant is tier 2, but they're not that imposing as far as units go, especially if you're trying to be, you know, hectic with your micro and trying to be on top of everything all over the place. Looks like maybe the Shambler thought about flanking forward with those Acantors. But as the Vagrants celebrate their freedom, the Zealots are going to go ahead and utterly devastate that Demiurge. It's over for them, and that Spoke is just going to be controlled and contained for now, as the Shambler has set up a large number of workers over here he's forgotten about over by 12 o'clock. He is going to go ahead and task those up over there. Almost to 200 workers right now. Is it going to be enough? His army size has plummeted. The Architect's taking a lot of initial damage, courtesy of those Acantor, or dodgeballs, as I like to sometimes refer to them as, and they are going to end up hitting the deck. Now, the Demiurge is going to go ahead and fall away. That is going to result in most of these Zealots ending up just expiring instead of being controlled, because the Demiurge does have to be within the radius of it. And so, as a result, he's kind of just by himself right now. Let's see what more we end up having. I think I saw a pretty powerful tech structure somewhere. No, it's just double synthetic sign-out. I thought I saw like a Monument of Sin be put down at some point. I mean, the Shambler can afford it right now. But it looks like right now, that's not his MO. That's not what he's going for. We've got Atriuses, we've got Architects being made by HitEmUp, and we have double synthetic sign-out at the 11 o'clock position, or I guess that's 11 o'clock. Yeah, there's not really a true 12 in this map. So it's like 11 and 1. So that's interesting. Now, HitEmUp charging into the middle of the map. I love to see this sort of macro play coming out of a mirror matchup, because it's always so interesting what the players decide to do. Remember, there's about 50 units per race, right? So realistically speaking, 21 minutes into the game, we've seen maybe like a quarter of the tech that the races have to offer. There's a lot more than this, although maybe it's past the window of some of it. Like, I don't know if you would see too many units out of the Lattice right now. I'm sure Vassals could be made an argument for, because when they die, they give you that movement speed boost, but the Vassal is a mineral-only unit, so you don't have to spend Vespene on it like you do with the Ecclesiast. It obviously doesn't give you the shield benefit then, but that's something that maybe you can rely on a higher tech unit like the Patriarch from the Ancestral Archives, for example. But it is going to be double synthetic sign-out here for HitEmUp. He's kind of jockeying back and forth across the middle of the map in a bit of a slice. And meanwhile, obviously the Shambler trying to get up to this eastern spoke, see what he can do to try to pressure his opponent. Demiurge announcing itself. There are still a lot of Acantors. We got 5 of them, and we have 4 Demiurges. In fact, another one just walked in. Now the Zealots are starting to crumble, courtesy of the Acantor shots, and they will end up turning tail and changing allegiances. But because of the Acantors that HitEmUp has, it does feel like at this stage, we're going to be just fine when it comes to the Zealot count. Like, they're just going to end up dying. As soon as the Acantors shoot, they're not shooting! They're instead falling back. Remember that the damage 1.5x's when you are tyrannized. And some of them are going to get counter-tyrannized, courtesy of the Demiurge that HitEmUp himself made. So it's kind of a war of who can steal the other guy's units the most, as of right now. Now the Empresses are out, the Architect count has gone enormous, and it doesn't really look like the front line has favored the Shambler whatsoever. He's just lost his total army. He's going to start to get zombified here, and that is going to be it for his force. In fact, I'm not even really sure what more he has back at home. He's got some Zealots, he's warping in some defenses. I don't think he realizes just how much in danger he is, because he looked away in the middle of that fight. And now, I think we're probably going to end up seeing a final death push unless he can muster enough. Now, the one thing I will say about HitEmUp's forces right now is that he doesn't really have much of a front line. And the Zealots are also here. There's not that much crowd control with this army. I don't see any Acantors. There's one Acantor over here. Might get flanked at the end of the day anyway. But the Architects are dealing a crazy amount of damage. You got to remember, oh no, a random Demiurge walks on in and gets tyrannized. That is going to be a little bit of a crippling blow. Remember that these tech units, oh, that Acantor also could have been very, very useful for the Shambler. He's not taking the best of engagements, falling back to his rogue galleries. He doesn't have hardly any static defense, and another Demiurge walks out and just gets immediately jumped upon by the rest of the force. That Acantor is dead. The Architect not even going to go down as a result of it, and I don't think Shambler can do much more. He's gotten so many more workers. He's almost 50 workers up. But it's not going to matter right now because he just doesn't have the production. Down to 12 units. His structure's starting to crumble. The defenses as well going to be taken care of very soon as well. And yeah, at this point, it does look like the writing is on the wall. Sure, he's got production across the map, but his natural is about to get caved in. His third is starting to crumble as well. It's just going to be over for him. And we'll see if the Shambler wants to type GG this time because HitEmUp has smoked him. surveying the battlefield, considering what else he might be able to do, but he's got 1 Acantor versus 4 Empresses and a horde of 13 Architects. My guy. Trying to pull away with the Scribes. I don't think it's going to happen too much here. HitEmUp knows exactly what he needs to do from this position, and it's just to go hunt down the other bases where there's an attempt at massing up some more Demiurges enough to be useful. Spoiler, I don't think they're actually going to end up being very useful. Now, there goes one of the Demiurges immediately controlled by the Empress. The Empress mind control works differently than the Demiurge, and the Demiurge works differently than the Mind Tyrant. So they're all a little bit unique in how they pop, but you can see here that they pop indeed Psi instead of GG. Yeah, there's no GG. Floated like 2k gas and 6k minerals, but we're not talking. Well, Shambler will finally get the GG out, but it's not until he gets a couple other words in edgewise, and HitEmUp posts a dub on the board. You know, I love to see a nice, long, meaty macro match between 2 players of the same race, because it kind of shows you that there's a lot there going on. But there's so many things we didn't see, right? We saw the Rogue Gallery, but no Kabbalists early on, because the Rogue Galleries came in later on for the Shambler. We didn't see any Charlatans to multiply the damage as well, and we didn't see any Barghest for Armor Pen. Maybe that's not something you really needed with that composition, I concede that. But there's a bunch of other units that we might have at some point been able to see. We saw, I think, every... Yeah, I think we saw every gateway unit, right? The Zealot, plenty of those. Legionnaires, obviously at the start for the Shambler. Dracodins for both players. Hierophants also for both players. And Ecclesias for both players. So plenty of that. But there's so many more units for Cosmonarchy. So many more units just for the Protoss section alone. I don't know if our next game is going to be a Protoss versus Protoss again, but just stick around because we're about to jump right into it. Well, let's get rolling. We've got none other than HitEmUp in the bottom left. And, of course, it is the Shambler in the top right. And, oh, man, this color is going to be a doozy. I'm going to guess Glacial. Oh, electric blue. That's one I said earlier. I guess, I can't remember what color I guessed in one of the last castovers, but I mentioned that it was like, it was some kind of yellow, and it was lemon, but I thought it was something else. Anyway, that's a tough one. Electric blue versus Glacial is tough for me. All right, this one is Bedazzled blue. Royal blue, god damn it. Well, I'm 0 for 2 on this one. I was 2 for 0 in the previous, or 2 for 2, I guess, in the previous one, so I hope you guys will excuse my spotty record in today's cast, in today's video. Of course, we are going to see what happens in this match. It's odd to see the Shambler play Terran again. I don't know if they were playing random or what. I think that's actually what I remember seeing in the cast video, like, or the replay submission thread, which actually we're going to be overhauling at some point. Hopefully I remember to later today. This Scribe is very fast here from HitEmUp, so I wonder what he's going to be ending up doing. It looks like we've got a stockade, a forward stockade, followed by a fast scout. And with this guy over here, this is very annoying. HitEmUp is just going to absolutely tickle this man to death until, yeah, another worker has to be sent out, and this worker's idling. Oh, Shambler. Oh, no. Now, thankfully, because he put it right up here, the worker cannot attack sort of up there. So that helps a little bit. And it looks like, yeah, at this point he might be safe. He'll be able to finish the stockade. Lattice is going to be coming up, so this is going to get cheesy, I feel like. I mean, he could go Sims and just walk across the map, or he could go Vassals and fly across the map. So there's a couple of options here. Maverick coming out of the stockade, and this Mason is just kind of dance around. He doesn't want the Scribe to walk up and scout the main, just wants to add a little bit more room for doubt. Now, what is going on over here? A pylon is being made. Now, the Lattice is going to go ahead and finish. 3 workers pulling. Where are they going? No? Okay, they're going back. I was going to say, what's going on here? Lattice is going to go ahead and make a sim. So that's kind of what I thought, actually. And the pylon here just as a sort of scout / nuisance. The worker does end up walking away. The Shambler decides to type. So I guess, you know, water is wet. News at 11. And the pylon going down here is, I mean, it's 75 minerals, so it's not nothing. That HitEmUp didn't cancel that. But it kind of gives him information as to where the Mavericks are, I guess. I'm trying to read between the lines as to why he would do that. I don't know. I was told that this game was deranged, so let's find out together. I mean, after that last game, which is very straightforward macro stuff, you know, it's good to be able to see some Terran and talk a little bit about that. But I'm also very interested in seeing what happens in this game. I was told that this replay was worth taking a look at. So, in fact, I was specifically told that Shambler makes this replay 10% better, according to Krankendow's very official and objective replay review metric. So, well, I guess I'll have to wait and see and see if I agree with that. I mean, I must, because it's objective, right? Decided by me. I decided it. So I guess to me it's objective. All right, we have the Shambler. He's got some Vespene. Yeah, he's going to go for the star pad. So a couple Vassals maybe coming out here now that the Sim array is installed. And the reason why you go for Simulacrum, by the way, is that when you have the Sim and it takes hull damage. After 5 seconds, it turns into it clones itself. And, you know, say it takes 40 hull damage, then the clone will also have the same amount of health, right? 35 health. So that is going to be the main reason why you might want to worry about Sims, because if you only deal a little bit of scratch damage to them, then the next one will have 70 health or something like that instead of 75 or instead of a lower number. And then now you suddenly have given your opponent free money, essentially. Now, I think I'm seeing the beginning of a fast bio drop. We got Cyprians out early, Starpad coming out here. I can't imagine what else it is. Although I suppose it could be a number of other things. I mean, the Cyprians just finished, so we'll see what Shambler wants to do. It's actually a fast Anseal, so that's kind of interesting. The Maverick going to get sniped by the Sims before revealing the Vassals. So no Vassal info right now. We do have some idols out for Splash, bio being scouted, since the second stockade was built right next to the first, which I thought maybe that would have been a mind game as well, but it turns out it's not. He's going to move across the map with some bio. He's got the Cyprians here. I do like the Anseal. It's going to be great at blocking all the Simulacrum shots, and if there's a Warden constructed at some point, or obviously Vassals as well. Idols deal Splash, so Splash does penetrate through the Anseal. It also reduces the Anseal's energy a lot more than you might expect, because you're trying to shield like 5 units from the splash damage, right? So you're actually dealing, say, 10 damage, but like, I don't know, times 3, because even though you're hitting 5 units, like maybe it's outer splash and inner splash mixed together with medium splash and all that stuff, right? So, you know, you can just like say, okay, I'm going to deal 30 damage for the energy per hit. Like, that's a lot. So Vassals are actually going to escape the building. We don't have any defenses over here. Well, he's making a Paranoid Watchdog, so that's actually good. Maybe he'll be able to finish that up before the Vassals hit. Let's see. You can see the Anseal taking actual hull damage, courtesy of the Idol. And now the Stim comes in. He's going to go ahead and charge forward, seeing if he can just burst down the Sims. It looks like the answer is yes. And yeah, that Idol is going to go ahead and be pushed on back. The Warden will get 2 shots, but of course those end up getting blocked by the Anseal. And now the Vassals are coming on in. I guess they can probably snipe the Starpad. It doesn't have that much armor, but there's only the one Watchdog, right? So he's actually just going to go after it. And the Shambler is busy microing back at home versus the Scribes of all things. So he's only now going to look back, and the Watchdog has been killed somehow, some way. We've got Mavericks coming out of the stockade. Well, suddenly this is a game. I thought for sure he was just going to storm the front and annihilate all of the Protoss. He is going to go ahead and pull his workers, but HitEmUp only has 1 worker left. And he has no money, in fact, so I can't believe what I'm seeing. I really can't believe what I'm seeing, in fact. The Vassals are gunning down individual Mavericks. Dude, no. What? How is this how this game is turned into? Oh, he can cancel some stuff and build workers. If he cancels these units, he can suddenly build workers out of the Nexus, and maybe he can fight like the Mavericks or whatever. There's only 5 Mavericks, right? I mean, there's enough money to make a watch. Okay, yeah. Okay, Shambler's got the right idea. I think he's actually fine here. I mean, he's building the Watchdogs. He is going to be able to, I don't know what he's doing with all these workers, but he does have 2 workers over here, 3 workers actually, so he can come back into the game. I just don't see a way for HitEmUp to do that. Well, I guess he's going to execute all of the Mavericks, and then he's going to execute the Masons that have mistakenly flown all the way across. And then he's just going to rebuild from the same amount of workers that the Shambler rebuilt from, because they both have 3 workers at the start, and you know, all these workers are just going to get heckled to death because there's no Watchdogs over here. Stockades are going to fall on back. Wow. Now this is peak Cosmonarchy, guys. I got to say, remember when I said that stuff about silly series? You can see here Shambler is going to go ahead and try to peel off some of his workers so you can save a couple of them. Obviously, the worker count massively in favor of him, but he's losing these 4, which kind of makes sense. I mean, he's still got 6 coming back, so he's going to have a significant worker advantage at this point. Pylon has been reactivated. One thing to say is that the Nexus and the Embassy both make workers, like we mentioned in the previous cast. So that's actually a pretty good deal. Now, unfortunately here for HitEmUp, he's not going to be able to secure an additional worker kill at this point. He's going to charge in here and see. Oh, okay. I can't really do much else. So maybe at best he can kind of... Oh, he's taking some damage that he doesn't need to be taking here. Maybe at best he can kind of like attack the Masons on the way out and stop them from coming on in. I see he was like heckling the stockade so that they have to go on back. I mean, you could just walk this Watchdog forward or whatever. There's only 4 Vassals left at this point. They're coming up the ramp anyway, which is, I think, a mistake. Well, somehow none of them died, so I don't really know how that's possible. Okay, one of them dies at the end. Still, getting those 2 out, I thought those were dead for sure, so that's actually pretty good. We've got some Cyprians coming. We have another Anseal coming, and an Idol stands guard. Dude, this match is autistic. Well, it takes one to know one, my man. I don't know what else to say to that. I'm expecting there's going to be a Trojan at some point for a drop. I mean, surely you have to think about that. Although, honestly, what if HitEmUp goes for a fast envoy at some point? I don't know. I'm just saying, it feels like there's some stuff here. It feels like there's some things, some stuff and some things that could very well be happening here. A little bit, yeah, I would say a little bit. Hey, this is a novel game state. I have never seen a game like this. Like, I never really see any one game in the same, like, case. Like, I've seen games that maybe have the similar opener or something. I've never seen a game that's literally like this. This has just never been the case. All right, he has enough for, you know, a full Trojan if he decides to load up all of the Cyprians. So that does feel like it would be a good move. You can definitely just start dropping your opponent at this point. He's only got the 4 vassals anyway. We've got an idol and a sim worrying about the walkout. And another stockade coming up. Looks like this stockade going to fall on back and start producing an add-on maybe? I'm not really sure what it was. Oh, I guess he probably had to lift it so he could get units out of this rally hole, if I'm guessing correctly. That would make some sense. Still no Trojan, though. Worker count, ironically, something that Shambler sometimes asks, is indeed ahead of his opponents. In fact, I'm kind of surprised he didn't ask worker count already. Like, isn't that the prototypical Shambler thing to do? We're all just waiting for him to storm across the map and kill his opponent. I guess we're going to have to wait and see if that ends up happening. I mean, I really thought he was going to win the last fight. And he was kind of working out okay until he... Like, the big thing is that he didn't repair the Watchdog. If he repairs the Watchdog, this game's over and never gets casted, and we never see it. So, in a way, I'm kind of glad he didn't repair that Watchdog, because it meant that I could see this. But, in another way... Like, surely, I don't know. This is just silly. This is very silly to me. So here comes the Ant Seal. It will help to shield the Mavericks coming on in. Although not very much versus the Idols. We already talked about that a little bit. So he's going to go ahead and hug the top cliff over here. He has provided an extra Simulacrum for his opponent, but it doesn't matter too much when you're dealing with Cyprians, right? Moving forward here, the Ant Seal is just going to get nuked, so that's a little unfortunate. I feel like maybe Shambler wasn't aware of that mechanic or something. I'm not sure. He still has the 4 Cyprians for the splash, and they are just absolutely wrecking house right now. Only lost 1 of them so far. 1 vassal left. Nice splits, though. That is actually going to work out in HitEmUp's favor, so it looks like he's fine. He's even going to get a free sim after all of that, even though that sim was like 1 hit from death. And the vassal stays alive as well, so it looks like the Sips are no longer going to be primary antagonist at this point. That's what it seems like to me. What else do we have here? Honestly, I wouldn't mind just, like, spamming out Mavericks. You could probably kill this guy with you just, like, stimmed Mavericks out. Obviously, there's still some Vespene being harvested here during this fight, but you could almost abandon all of that or use it only on Ant Seals or something. I mean, I don't know. I still feel like a drop would have been better, just because it would have gotten across the map a little bit faster. This one vassal has 1 HP, dude. I don't even know how that's possible. It's the only vassal. It's the last vassal. Maybe that's the cast over title, the last vassal. And it's like a close-up shot of 1 out of 40. Kills 5. Photoshop in kills 69. I don't know. That's probably screenshot worthy. All right, here we go. The stem's onto the ramp. Yeah, he's just going to jump forward and kill a couple idols. That's really good. So again, just massing the Mavericks out, slamming them into his face. I just say attack move, dude. I mean, maybe at best he'll have 4 idols when you get to his base. Plus the reinforcements or stragglers, I guess. So he'll have 7 idols. I mean, with a cliff advantage, that is a little bit scary. Again, that might be why you could consider a drop or something like that. The treasury is going to go out. Yeah, I guess, okay. You know what? Shambler's just doing it. He's just feeling it. He's like, you know what? Let's just do this. Let's just go through and say, like, hey, I am doing my best here to pretend that this is a real macro game, and I'm just going to build a quarry over here out of my treasury. So there you go. Worker count has evened up, though, and again, HitEmUp has had this embassy the whole time, so it kind of stands to reason that. He's actually going for an Ardent Authority. I do worry if he gets drop tech and Akantor drops his opponent, and there's only Watchdogs here and no anti-surface defense, no mines. I mean, he's making a Fulcrum. Maybe he'll make the lobotomy mines out of the Vulture, right? Maybe he'll make the Vulture and then make the lobotomy mines. That might be a thing. I don't know. Here we go. Trying to stem up the ramp. Nice scribe to randomly occupy all that. Again, there's a lot of idols still over here. We need to see a restim at some point. A restim would have been amazing for these Mavericks, but he doesn't end up doing it, and they all end up falling. That feels like a big whiff. That was a big missed opportunity. You can queue the stim so that as soon as the injection happens, the initial injection. So stim has 3 stages to it. You take the damage when you hit the ability for the button. Then like a second and a half or 2 seconds later, you get the buff. And then 5 seconds later, it runs out. So in between you getting the buff, and well, as soon as you get the buff, basically, so like 1.5 seconds after the activation, you can stim again and automatically get your buff again 1.5 seconds later. So you want to kind of time that out so that you're doing that maybe 3 seconds into the buff. So 5 seconds after you initially hit the stim key, you want to stim again with the same Mavericks. So that's the kind of pattern that you want to try to drill into, and it feels like maybe Shambler's not super practiced with that. He's going for a Palladium. Maybe he's going to drop the Palladium, the Phalanx, which you make out of the Palladium. We'll see. Wouldn't hate a bunch of Madrigals here, but I feel a little unlikely given we really haven't seen too many people trying Madrigals out too much. Nexus now coming down here for HitEmUp. He is going for the Acantor. He does have the Envoy full of that Acantor. And so I'm expecting a couple of workers to die here. We don't have another quarry, so if any workers die, then Shambler will probably not be able to catch back up in worker count for a little bit here. The Envoy taking almost all of its shield damage, now going to start taking some hull damage as well. So down to 87 health. Does have to watch out for that. I'm assuming Shambler did see that, although he didn't really react to the position. Oh my god! Cliff advantage. Now that is amazing. He's like, what? What the fuck? How did you do that? What the hell? I haven't seen that before. That's very funny. This Acantor is a Chad. Oh. Gat. Gat, gat, gat. Triple gat. The real ones know about triple gat. Well, here's the Phalanx. HitEmUp wants to put on his best snow cosplay and see what he can do with this Acantor in the Envoy. Now, he's got a lot of workers just hanging out over here with their wangs out. I'm sure they'll put them away and start working again. Obviously, the sim count is okay. The idle count is pretty good. And the Acantor back here. Do we get another Envoy? That's the question. Because I can't do it, but I love to try. I love to just try to juggle Envoys on opposite sides of the map. Maybe I can do 2 Envoys, but I can't macro at the same time. So that's my story. I can do 1 Envoy and half macro, or I can do 2 Envoys and no macro. And hope I just kill him with the 2 Envoys. That's what I can do. But I'm sure HitEmUp can be better than me. I mean, he plays this game enough. I actually feel pretty bad. I haven't been able to play the game as much as I want to lately, and I haven't been able to make as much content as I want to lately. But I'm glad I was able to keep the cast over streak, the daily video streak going for you guys. We're now on to video 103, I believe. Of course, it had to be celebrated by whatever that noise was. I really, sometimes you hear people's cars and you wonder, like, how the hell is that street legal? In fact, I'm pretty sure it isn't. So now we've got another couple parting shots here with 4 Mavericks going down. Oh, well, let's make it a little bit more. Whoa. Has to walk around that. The Anseal's obviously seeing what's going on here. I mean, the Cyprian count is very high. The Maverick count very low, especially now that 4 of them have died sort of for nothing. I wonder what's going on with that. The Envoy trying to poke around and see what's going on. Is it going to walk in here and get shellacked or something? I'm not really 100% sure what is happening over here. No, in fact, it looks like he's going to go after the natural, but there is another Acantor over there. And it doesn't have an Envoy, so it might be a setting duck again. But this just feels like a mystery. This is like not what you want to do with the bio. I mean, bio versus Acantor. So like in StarCraft 1, right? You don't go bio versus Protoss hardly ever. This is like a really rare all-in situation. And the reason why is because of splash damage. Now, in Cosmonarchy, I think you can go bio, but you can't go Cyprian Maverick, especially Cyprian Dominant, and expect to be able to defeat stuff like this. I mean, the Envoy is too mobile, the Acantor is too Acantor, and the the splash damage is too high from that, plus the idols and all this other stuff, right? Oh, that's Cyprian. Just walked over here and said, "Get down, Mr. President." Now, hey, a couple of shots more, and maybe that Envoy would have gone down. That would have been a moral victory, but we do have a third base being taken for both players. Treasure not building anything right now. Atlas about halfway done. I can't believe we've gotten a tier 2 off of this, honestly. Like, I may never see a game like this again. But I hope I do. I hope we all do. I hope I get to send somebody like Mask or Greth or Diggity or Artosis. Somebody needs to cast a game that's like this. Except it's played with like, twice as much APM or something. I don't know. Something like that would be great. All right, the Acantor is coming in here to disrupt things. There's not really any... Oh, there's a couple of units flying around. So far, it's got single Mason, it looks like. Maybe that's 2. I can't quite tell. But the quarry is just fine. I mean, it's taken a little bit of damage, but it's fine. The lower spoke here in the middle of the map has been taken and held by the infantry. And the phalanxes are now going to go ahead and deploy. There's 3 of them with the main army, so that's very good. Plenty of Cyprians. This Cantor is on an attack move command, so it will attack over here and start killing Cyprians. Oh! Now it's grounded, right? So it is dead. But it gets a third shot off, which is actually very big. Now, if the Cyprian count was a little bit higher here, I wouldn't mind this position too much. But, oh no, the Envoy came back down, and this hero Cantor over here has just creamed out the Phalanx from the top. I was going to say, if there were more Cyprians and more Mavericks here, and maybe any Harakans or something for the armor pen, I'd love to see that versus the Golems. But the Golems have ended up being a very effective usage here, very effective tool. We have double Fulcrum triple Fulcrum actually for Palladiums. He's making a lot of Phalanxes, kind of going like combined arms here, which I like the concept of. But I feel like the bio was a bit of a misread earlier on. Like, it feels like maybe Shambler just thought he was going to be ahead. And I kind of get where he's coming from there. But what a crazy game. Well, yeah, that Phalanx is going to go down. So too is the Cantor. The Envoy actually is living with 2 health, because of course it does. And the Phalanxes over here are going to get dealt with. There's 4 Architects, 5 Architects on the front line. Yeah, I think this might be another Shambler typing moment. By which I mean I don't think he's going to GG this time around. I think he's just going to say, that's autistic or something. I don't know. I would say pause the video here and tell me what you think that Shambler is going to say. But is anybody really going to do that? If you do, I salute you. And make sure to edit your comment or reply to your comment and say, oh my god, I can't believe you said that. Well, maybe the game's not over yet. I'm not really 100% sure. I mean, HitEmUp can definitely just power through. He's got so many Architects. He set up his 3rd base. Oh my god. You know, it's funny because there was some discussion recently where Shambler thought that the Eidolon was a terrible unit, and HitEmUp himself actually said, I think that you're very wrong and the Eidolon's a very good unit. And in this situation, I would have loved to see an Eidolon at some point. But, I mean, it was a very low econ game. I was just thinking maybe the Eidolon would have been better than an Antseal. I think, yeah, if you get like 2 Eidolons instead of 2 Antseals, you can probably deal with, like, for example, the Envoy, if that even comes in. You could probably just end the game before then. I don't know. That's just a thought. You know, hindsight 2020, etc. But at this point, Shambler's already started to type, and HitEmUp is just casually enjoying the situation. He's scouted the neutral bases. You can drop workers over here and have them enjoy free harvesting. It's very epic. And, I mean, I say free harvesting. Obviously, you have to invest in the workers and the transport. But you get the idea. Neblime is the only player... Or sorry, Neblime. Neblime is the only player who's actually been really making use of the artisans lately. You know? I've seen like double embassy, triple embassy out of him. He's a crazy guy. I think Hamster might do it too, but he's mostly playing Stockade Man now. He's mostly playing Bioman. Maybe he'll have some tips for the Shambler. If he watches this video, Hamster, if you're out there, please leave some tips for the Shambler on how to use Bio. I don't know that he'll listen to you, but it might help somebody else too. So the Architects are going to get engaged upon here a little bit. I mean, there's one of them off to the side, but the Phalanxes aren't going to be able to keep up, obviously. Some of them in the back are going to go ahead. No, actually, the ones in the front are the ones that are going to go ahead and move forward. It looks like a Witness was taken care of there. And yeah, the mech army at this point is okay versus the Goliaths. Sorry, the Golems. I'm a little bit concerned about how he's going to deal with the Architect count, because it is still quite high, right? There's 6 of them right now. Only popping 1 of them now. Not really having cliff advantage in a steady amount in this situation. And there's a bunch of vassals that have shown up as well. So once these Goliaths go down, there is no more anti-air. He didn't make Cyprians. He didn't make Cyclops. Obviously didn't make Madrigals. Shaman is going to go ahead and get kaput. That was what was revealing the Witness earlier. And that is, let's just say expensive. How many bases? Worker count. 5. I mean, he's kind of wrong. He only has 4 bases. But he just set up his 5th. So he was just typing to type. Which is what Shambler does. He likes to type. But you know what? If your opponent starts asking you questions like that where they're just tilted, you can just respond with an answer that is guaranteed to tilt them back. He did have literally 1 worker at one point, and now HitEmUp as 136 workers. Just to show you where this game has gone. I'm drinking some coffee while this one goes, and I want to see where he goes with this. Oh, he's actually not typing anymore. Never mind. Question mark. He killed his own Phalanx by accident. Yeah, maybe that was the guy who told him to stop typing and he just executed. I don't know. I don't know what goes on in Shambler's mind. Shambler's mind is a mystery. The Enigma. The Shambler. Enigma is actually the name of a map by Veek, I believe. A map by Veek 7. Well, I hope Shambler finishes his job soon, because I actually have an alarm going off. All right, we're back. We didn't miss much. Just some unsieging of the phalanxes. Looks like maybe Shambler is going to go for another roundabout, another move out, a final strike. I mean, some of these bases aren't very well defended. It's just a question of, like, how do you even bust the architect-fueled army? There's so many of them. There's actually more architects than there are simulacrum right now. Well, maybe that's actually not true. Yeah, it is true. Never mind. Of course it's true. I said it. It must be true. Which is why these colors are Bedazzle Blue and Glacial, right? Right, guys? Right? I wish I could just, like, quickly change the name of the color in the video or something. I don't care that much about video editing to do that, but it would have been pretty funny if I did that. All right. Very big force here for HitEmUp, as expected. He's got 4 Empresses, which is sort of like a magic number that he likes to use. The Clerics are walking into Wardens, and this is going to be the total shellacking of Mr. Shambler. He doesn't really have that much. This army is half the size of what it would need to be competitive with this force. He has hardly any anti-air. He just has a couple of cataphracts. And so, yeah, he just looks away, and when he looks back, his army will be gone. And if he even looks back at all, I don't know. I'm not really 100% sure where his head's at right now. I mean, this is a game he cannot win. And whoa, you can't say that. That's... I'll let you guys finish the sentence. Racist. That's right. Terrans love rice. I know. I am a Terran. I hate this. Yeah, that's a good one. He's added captaincies. Maybe he can turn it around with some apostles. I say maybe, but it's perfunctory. It's performative. There's no way. In fact, HitEmUp is being very cautious right now. This is a game where, realistically speaking, I should just hold numpad plus and let it go. Like, what is Shambler even doing in the game at this point? Like, I really would like to know. Is this a game that secretly goes on for like another, you know, this game went on longer than the other game. Like, holy shit. Well, Shambler using his sportsmanlike conduct move. It's very good, very effective move. And I will give him the fate that he desired. With 10 architects and 8 empresses, make it 9. Make it 10, 11. All right, and then he left. Okay. Well, I don't know why we casted the last 5 to 10 minutes of that game, but I hope you guys enjoyed the overall production. HitEmUp with a 2-0 in this set of matches that we casted. There were more played, but Shambler did not consent to them. I don't know if that means that he won or lost them, or if they just weren't that interesting. I don't know. I mean, that's a weird term for to use for that. But we have the answer to who was better on the day, I guess. GG's, and we'll be back tomorrow for more Cosmonarchy.